Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, alongside Dakota Lasky, Doomino Crossing. Dak, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm doing fantastic. I'm enjoying my 4-day weekend because the 4th of July is on a Tuesday, which means I have off till Wednesday, which is fantastic. Absolutely love that. I'm doing great. How you doing, man?
Good. I got a long weekend myself, but not a 4-day. I got the day off today for Canada Day. Doom, are you
Okay.
also a recipient of a 4-day weekend?
Well, I am currently not at a job right now, so I kind of have an infinite day weekend at the moment
Oh,
until
hell yeah.
until my post college job. So yeah, we're just chilling right now. We're just vibing, enjoying the new PC that I built, and yeah, it's all good.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Allison yesterday and on the Zelda cast, and she was like, "No, I have to work on Monday, but then I have Tuesday off, but then the rest of the." And I was like, "That sucks. Like, I feel
Yeah.
bad for you.
Mm.
You guys got some hot dogs going on tomorrow, some Budweisers, some fireworks. What else? What else do you Americans do?
No, you got it.
Like
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, basically,
You've got the whole thing.
Yeah,
light fireworks, clog our arteries, and drink beer. That's basically yeah.
yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, happy early Independence Day to you, and happy Independence Day to everyone listening. And hey, maybe if you're from my neck of the woods, happy Canada Day. Canada Day. Although that was a few days ago now. At this point,
Canada.
Canada Day. Yeah. Okay. So we put you, the listener, in charge of dictating our show this week. We've had a nice little run here, talking about all the Metroid implications of the last Nintendo Direct, talking about Metroid Dread being a full price game or not, talking about open world Metroid games, all of that stuff. So we've had a nice little run of shows here, I felt like, in the last little bit. So we wanted to turn the power over to you, the listener. And so today we got a full-blown fan Q&A episode going on, and I feel like it's been a while since we've had one of these, so I'm pretty excited to get going here. And I guess that we should just dive right in, gentlemen, into our questions here. So let's get it started. This is from our buddy Kevin. Before I read his question, so Kevin the Syriakis, what the heck is that? Because there's not one but two people named Syriakis in our Discord. What, am I missing something? Is that like a Metroid reference?
Yeah, it's one of the I didn't realize this until I played Prime Remaster, but it's one of the three ships that's mentioned. So you got the Orpheon, you got the Syriakis, and then there's another ship whose name I can't remember. But yeah, I was wondering that too, and then I played Prime Remaster and I saw that lore, and I was like, and then I asked them, and yeah, they confirmed it.
Yeah, very, very clever. Okay, so Kevin's question, here we go. Would you consider Metroid Prime Remastered to be a quote-unquote tech demo for Metroid Prime 4 when it's released? We might get multiple control schemes, etc., etc. I think a tech demo is the wrong word, but I think like a blueprint or a proof of concept or something like that is probably what I would say. I would be stunned if Metroid Prime 4 didn't feature every single control option Metroid Prime HD did, if it didn't feature like the same quality of graphics, obviously, if not more, if it's going on the next Switch. I think that you're going to see a lot of similarities between Metroid Prime HD and Metroid Prime 4. What do you guys think?
Well, first I want to chime in on the Syriakis thing, by the way, because how deep of a cut of a Metroid reference is that? I feel like 9 out of 10 Metroid fans would not get that. I didn't understand what that was until that was brought up, that two people have it in our Discord as well. So anyway, just want to chime in there. Second, yeah, I think for Prime 4, I mean, assuming that the Switch 2 is pretty similar, like control-wise to the Switch, like you're able to kind of play stuff in a similar way, and you have like similar peripherals. Wow. Yeah, I think Prime 4 is going to be pretty similar, if not like pretty much what we got in Metroid Prime Remastered, where we're going to have dual analog controls, we're going to have the motion controls of some kind, and maybe not have the original tank controls, because I guess that wouldn't really make too much sense, because that wouldn't exist. Like that was just something that was carried over from the original Metroid Prime. But yeah, I think what we got in Remastered is going to be pretty on par for what we end up getting in Prime 4, control-wise.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't really have much else to add. Where I'm kind of in agreement with Andy, where I don't think tech demo is the right word, but at the same time, because Metroid Prime, it's its own standalone game. It's able to stand on its own is more than that. But at the same time, there's a lot of new implementations in that game that I do think are going to be carryovers into Prime 4, like the controls, that art direction, and all those processes, the
Mhm.
accessibility options, even
Hmm.
that I think are going to be templates that we see moving forward.
I think it could just be like a demo straight up almost in general. Like it's definitely like an appetizer for what we were probably going to expect for Prime 4 just in a much bigger way.
Yeah.
And there was that kind of rumor that Prime Remastered started either as a thing to kind of get like retros like gear spinning with like developing a Metroid Prime again, or that they were working on this and then that's why Nintendo ended up giving Metroid Prime 4 development to them because they're like, oh wow, look at this. So those are both rumors and I don't know which is true, if not either of them true or not, but that is kind of something to think about. Like I'm sure there is some link to the development of Metroid Prime Remastered and Prime 4, and in that link to those two games, that's why what we're seeing in remaster is a pretty good indicator of what we'd expect in Prime 4.
Yep, I agree with that all across the board there. Kevin gave us another question, which is pretty interesting. Do you think
Oh, you think
Samus's...
that's interesting? Oh, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the amount of questions he was giving because someone else gave a lot of questions later.
Oh,
Never mind.
no. That's...
Continue.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. Kevin's second question is: do you think Samus's Metroid powers will continue to evolve in the future? Like she'll get a Gamma or a Zeta Metroid form, etc., etc. I would say no, and I don't know that I would necessarily want that either. I feel like Samus is almost like her own version of a Metroid. Like it's not part of the like classic evolutionary line. It's like the Samus Metroid or like the human hybrid Metroid. So I think that you could maybe like upgrade her powers in Metroid 6 with like new abilities and like Metroid abilities. I wouldn't say like in my mind you would be upgrading like the physical like appearance of her actual suit in a drastic evolutionary way. I could potentially see you getting something in Metroid 6 if indeed they do bring back the Metroid powers, where it's like you get the Omega suit or you get the Zeta suit, but it's not like a ton of like it almost functions like a gravity or a power or a etc. suit. Like that would be my kind of thoughts on that, but I don't, that being said, I don't think it's like completely out of the realm of possibility. Doom, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of again in the same boat here because like I could definitely see the powers getting utilized and those powers being upgraded over the course of like a Metroid 6 or a Metroid 7, but I don't necessarily think it would be in the sense of like, okay, now Samus has the alpha powers and now the gamma and et cetera, et cetera. I don't necessarily see it going down that route.
Hmm. I mean, both of y'all keep talking about like Samus getting like upgrades or like suits like down the Metroid evolutionary line. I actually think that's pretty interesting. It would be, I think, a pretty cool direction for Samus to go in instead of just kind of like arbitrarily like getting either the normal suit upgrades we expect, like power to Varia to gravity, or just getting like whatever new gimmick the game has. Like I think like that would actually make sense for I think the new arc for Samus, where now she really is a Metroid, and having her go through like getting these upgrades based on the evolutionary line of the Metroids. I think it would actually be pretty interesting. That
Mm-hmm.
said, at least based on the ending of Dread, where her Metroid powers seem to have been taken away, I don't think that's gonna happen, right? Because it's to my understanding, that's what happened in Dread. Quiet Robe X shows up and takes
Yeah,
away her Metroid powers so she can operate the ship, because otherwise she would drain the energy or something. So like, I
mm-hmm.
mean, I guess they could reintroduce that, but again, I want them to like commit to these like story decisions they made. I guess like if they took away her powers for the moment, like let's not just at the beginning of the next game be like, oh, actually she has them again. Don't worry about that. Like that to me is kind of similar to what they did at the beginning of Dread, where oh, this stuff happened at the end of Fusion. Don't worry about that. If they bring it up again in the future, I'll be like, that's kind of dumb because they already hand wove it earlier. Like let's not like commit to your story decision. So at the moment, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's where they're going, but I would be interested in that if that's the direction they did go.
I will say so. My interpretation of the ending of Metroid Dread is like, I think that Samus almost like can control her Metroid abilities, maybe a little bit more. That was my interpretation of it, or even like maybe it temporarily went away. I don't think, at least to me, it was like it's gone forever, it's done. Like, I guess to answer Kevin's question, in the way of like, if it was like Zeta, Omega, like if it was just like a suit upgrade, yeah, I could totally see that. But if it's like maybe something a little bit more like substantial, I don't know. I guess it's all in the way that you frame it. Because if you're making Metroid 6 and you have like new abilities and items and stuff like that, and they happen to be Metroid powers, like yeah, I could definitely see that. Or maybe like it replaces like Aeon powers or something like that. Like I could definitely see that. But I guess in the way that I originally read the question, which is like she's gonna change like basically like assuming that her Dread Metroid suit comes back, it's gonna like completely alter beyond like the aesthetics of a new suit. I don't know if I see that, but the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm kind of convincing myself that maybe it's actually not
I would love that. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And I think it maybe just to kind of go back on what I just said, but maybe at the beginning of the next game, she spends some time trying to reawaken her Metroid powers again. Now that she knows what she can do with them, she's like, oh, like I should really go get those back. That was pretty helpful.
Can you imagine like the intro of Metroid 6 is just like the intro for John Wick 4, where he's just like pounding that thing at the beginning of the movie? That would be awesome. And all of a sudden,
I have not seen it.
Oh man,
I've not seen John Wick 4. I've only seen the first 3.
You got to see John Wick 4.
You should rectify that.
Yeah, you should.
All right, I will get it. Did you get that reference? Doom?
Me?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, well you didn't react.
I thought
just sat there and didn't. Yeah, you just sat there and didn't react. I'm like, oh, I guess he hasn't seen it either. I'm gonna freely say this, and I got
you left me out here to die. Okay, let's move on. This is from Chris06, and I'm going to take the lead on this one if you guys don't mind. He asks, if Metroid Prime 4 is cross-gen or next-gen, will they reveal it before Switch 2? It could be the same situation with Breath of the Wild. So we've talked pretty extensively. We think they're going to reveal the Switch 2 before Metroid Prime 4, or at least like at the same time, I think is possible. Now, I would say this, like Breath of the Wild was kind of a different animal, because like that was very, very much intended to be like a Wii U game, where this was obviously meant to be a Switch game. No doubt they announced it at the beginning of the Switch's life, but like I think they probably learned a little something from Breath of the Wild, where it's like don't show too early, don't show your hand too early. So like I don't think the comparables are really there beyond the fact that like it started development on one console and will more than likely see its life on another console that came after it. So I would not expect to see Metroid Prime 4 before the Switch 2.
Well, if I can chime into the last part, I think the big difference here is, just the success rate of each console. Because the Switch, I mean, by the time we're expecting the Switch to go, 6, 7, potentially even 8 years before the Switch 2 comes out. Whereas, I mean, the Wii U, I mean, it cut its losses early. I mean, it barely lasted 4 years before the Switch came out. So, like, it makes sense that, why, Breath of the Wild was intended to be a Wii U game, but because the Switch came out so early, they had to quickly shift gears and, make all that difference. Whereas much different scenario with the Switch 2.
Yep, I agree. Doom, you anything to add to that, or?
I
said Doom. I'm sorry. I meant to say Dak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we already kind of gave our opinions on this I feel like an episode or two ago. So if you want to hear our answers to that, just listen to that whole episode, because we talk about this. Yeah, we're gonna see the Switch 2 first before we see Metroid Prime 4. Honestly, I think at all. I don't even think they're gonna tease it until we see the Switch 2. I think it's probably going to be a cross-gen game, but we're not going to see it until we see Switch 2, and then it'll be a release for both.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, this next question is from Metroid Theorist. How do you think Samus's life might have been if she was raised by the Luminoth? Would Umos be her surrogate father? Would she don the dark suit as her power suit? Dak, you can kick us off here.
Oh, okay.
Unless you don't want to.
No, I think this is a great question. This is like one of those questions where I'm like, damn, we could probably dedicate a whole episode to this, right? Because a lot of like speculation, what if? I think the biggest thing that kind of sticks out to me is that, I mean, first of all, I don't know, would Samus have survived? Like, because to my recollection, the Luminoth are like fighting off the Ing for quite a long time recently, right? Like they have a long war. Like, does Samus survive that? Like,
yeah.
Samus survives the attack on her colony, but other than that, she's raised by the Chozo in, to my knowledge, a pretty peaceful time. Like, she just leaves the Chozo of her own accord. She doesn't leave the Chozo freely. Like she gets her power suit and then she dips. With the Luminoth, to my knowledge, like they're fighting the Ing for a long time, up until pretty recently. A lot of the Luminoth are put into like stasis because like they're losing and the Ing are fighting them constantly. I think like Umos is one of the last Luminoth hanging around, kind of just chilling. So Samus probably wouldn't have had a great upbringing if she survives it at all, if she's even picked up. Do the Luminoth have like power suits like the Chozo do? I feel like they might. They probably do. So maybe she probably gets some equivalent.
Well, they got the dark and light suit at least, and it seems like at some point, they interacted with the Chozo and took some of their technology back.
Yeah, they interact with the Chozo and the different species from Prime 3 as well, like that come from Brio and whatnot. So they're all mixing technology, and I'm sure with the Federation as well. So I mean, I'm sure there's some world in which Samus gets like a similar suit like she does with the Chozo. I feel like that part probably could still happen. Now though that we with Dread, would Samus have gotten like Luminoth DNA?
That's
like,
what I was gonna say.
That's the big
DNA.
question.
Yeah,
that's the big question.
Warrior.
Right, because she got that from the warrior tribe part of the Chozo, but she was kind of raised by the Thoha tribe, or right. Like she wasn't really raised by the warrior tribe. She was given the warrior DNA, but she wasn't really raised by them. So like, would the same effect have happened with the Luminoth? Would Umos have given Samus Luminoth DNA? Like I don't know. I don't think so. Who else would have? I don't know.
Well, the reason she was given the Chozo DNA was so she could actually survive on Zebes, because otherwise, like the environment would be too harsh for her. Otherwise, so I'm not sure. I mean, I guess Aether's environment is pretty harsh too, with like the dark and light worlds colliding. But like, I'm not sure if it's so harsh that it would necessitate a DNA transfer. I don't know. We'd have to consult some of the lore experts at Retro for that one.
I don't know how the moth DNA transfer works from moth to human. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. But I'm envisioning a Samus that probably is like way more like hardened and less human than we would think, because I feel like Samus would have been raised in a much harder like environment growing up like as a younger Samus, or maybe she leaves for the Federation at an earlier age as a result. I don't know. It's a really interesting question. What do you think, Andy?
I mean, I pretty much agree with what you laid out. Like, I think the environment would have been very different, and I wonder if she would have became quite the warrior that she became, because she presumably she doesn't have that Mockin DNA going into her. I guess like I'm not like a super like in-depth lore guy. Like that's never kind of been my thing, so I never really think about these scenarios. So I feel like I don't really have anything kind of prepared. But I do wonder like. I think we would have got a different version of Samus, both in terms of her capabilities and in terms of her like outlook towards life. Because I mean, like you grow up in a war-torn planet that's literally splitting in two. That's probably going to affect your own psyche and personality. So I think you would have seen a much more anti-hero version of Samus were that the case. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Umos seems like a guiding hand in Metroid Prime 2, so maybe he kind of would have alleviated a lot of that. But it is interesting to think about for sure.
I think that is the most like the pivotal point there is that whether or not she gets that specifically Mockin DNA that literally makes her a warrior in that chose a warrior in that case, versus like what would be the equivalent to like kind of make up for that being raised by a Luminoth. I think that's kind of like the interesting stuff we could maybe dig into more, and maybe she would just be built different. Like Umos just had to train her that much. Like she just had to be that strong of a warrior without needing the Chozo DNA. I don't know.
Well, even so, I doubt Samus is going to be doing all the somersaults that she does in the 2D games at bare minimum without that DNA. So
well, moths are pretty like that's what I'm saying. Maybe the Luminoth give her the moth DNA and she can like fly or hover. I don't know. Like she could. Birds and moths, like they both fly. They both go airborne. Like there's some crossover there. I don't know.
All right. Well,
I love that question though.
It's a good question.
Well, I want to dig into that more in a future episode.
It's a good thought experiment, I think, for sure. Okay, this is from our pal Quest. He asks, if you could have one returning boss from either the mainline or Prime games and Metroid Prime 4, who would you want that to be and why? So we touched on this a little bit a couple weeks ago. but I don't Doom. I don't think you were there. So maybe if you want to lead us off here, is there any boss that you would love to see in Metroid Prime 4? Obviously, I was hoping for Kraid, but he already showed up in Dread, so I feel like my appetite is
Who
full
did I
for
say?
Kraid.
Do you remember? I don't remember, but
I don't
I'm gonna
remember.
quickly say Ceres.
I think you said Saris.
I'm
Or
gonna quickly
someone.
say Ceres or Metacrade would be like if they're gonna
Yeah.
do that and bring that back. Those are my picks. But yeah, go on.
Okay.
I don't think it would happen, but I would love to see a 3D Diggernaut in Prime 4. Don't think it would happen,
Hmm.
but I think that would be so killer.
Right. You know, I was kind of thinking about this. And one boss that I would really, really love to see back is Dragon. However, I don't know that I'd want to see him in Metroid Prime. I think that's like a boss that would really excel in like a 2D Metroid environment.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it would be great in Metroid Prime as well, but like that wouldn't be my top of the line. I think what I might say is like I would love to see an Omega Metroid in 3D or like
Yes,
a que-
100%
maybe a
agreed.
Queen Metroid or like just something like because you kind of saw the Queen Metroid in 3D and Other M, but not in the way that we perhaps wanted. So I think an Omega Metroid would be wicked. And then like I think that you could like putting aside the fact that it doesn't really ever make sense for these bosses to come back, but like I think like Yakuza would be an awesome boss to have back, one that was like bouncing around and stuff like that. Or I don't know, like I don't think that there's any while the Prime series has like these amazing bosses, I don't know that there's any one of them that I'm like clamoring to see come back, and I think that's because they're so like tied to their like specific areas, and it makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah,
maybe Omega Metroid is my answer. That would be a pretty sweet 3D fight, I think.
Omega Metroid would be dope. And then yeah, for like Metroid Prime 4, I'd be okay with like Omega Metroid returning, like an Omega Metroid, Ridley obviously, and then just like new bosses. Give me all new stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing, and granted, we're only talking about theoreticals here. The only thing I see with the Omega Metroid, shout out to the #1 weekly Metroid podcast, but the only thing that I don't see about that is that Samus doesn't encounter those kind of Metroid evolutions until Metroid 2, which is after Prime 4 would be theoretically taking place.
You
But
know, I'm
So we
still not.
retcon it. We retcon it.
Yeah. First of all, you could just have her see an Omega
We just
Metroid.
have her see them. Yeah, she just like, what is that? I've never seen it before.
Second of all, I am not completely married to the idea that this game is going to take place immediately after Metroid Prime 3. And when I say immediately, I mean like next in sequence. Like I still think it's possible this takes place after Fusion, after Dread, after Super. Like I think that there's a lot of room to play there because this is going to be a beginning of something. Like it doesn't have to be tied to the events that have happened before just because it's called Metroid Prime 4. Like as we've talked about a lot of times, I think Metroid Prime at this point is the branding of the game. It tells you that it's a first-person shooter game, not necessarily you're dealing with that specific enemy, Metroid Prime. So I think that they could play around a little bit there.
I hope Metroid Prime does that. I don't think they're going to do that, at least for now. At least for now.
I agree with everything you just said, Andy, but I only if they're following the like story of like following up with Silex. Like if that's happening, then I think it takes place after the events of Metroid Prime 3 and the trilogy and Hunters, just because to me it wouldn't make any sense to like hold that like chronologically Silex do nothing after the events of Prime 3 or whatever all the way until after Fusion or Dread. Like that to me just feels weird to pick it up after that. They could
And,
easily
and Federation Force too, as much as we want to forget about that.
and
Wow.
right, so the prime games in general. So like to me, it makes sense that they would have Prime 4 happen around those games, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the trilogy. If it has something to do with Silex, I do think it'll follow right after that, and they could fit another 3 games in that span. I mean, they already fit how many so far? Like
Yeah,
Silex isn't brought up at any point after that, so it makes sense that his story ends around that time.
I completely like get and respect everything you guys are saying, and it's probably true. But I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like, I think to your point about Federation Force, like, who says that Silex didn't steal that egg and like is been conducting his own research for X amount of years or whatever, right? Like, I do think that there's a way that you can bring Silex back at any point in the series. In I think that there's an easy enough story explanation for it to not feel ridiculous. But to your point, like I think you guys are probably right. Like I think it will probably take place right after Prime 3, or I guess Federation Force at this point. But
it would be interesting though if Samus instead runs into Silex all the way after Dread, in which case she's now way stronger and just like destroys him
That
like
would
with
be
Metroid
sweet.
powers. Like by that point she's so overpowered that Silex isn't even an issue now, and just stomps him. Oh, maybe that happens.
Guys, I can't get this thing out of my head where I'm just like, you know what, Samus and Silex are going to find a way. They're going to be buds at the end of this game. Like, I think Silex is going to be a character that is going to stay in this series.
My biggest fear is Silex is like Samus's brother or something. That
would be lame.
That would be horrible.
Something like that would be awful. I really hope that doesn't happen. And part of me is afraid. Part of me is scared that that's
don't even
happen.
put that into the world. That's cheesy.
I want Silex to be the Raiden of the Metroid universe. That's what I want.
Exactly. That's exactly my thoughts. Yes. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. This is from New Supreme Man. Have you guys read the various Metroid comics and manga? If so, what do you think of them? There's a little bit more to the question, but I have to cut it off and say, no, I have not read them, not yet. But we do have. I think when I first started putting together ideas like way back in 2018 for a Metroid podcast, that was one of them that I jotted down, was like maybe we should start reviewing all the various Metroid manga. Like I know that Joey and Samus is a pretty popular one, so maybe we could do that. I think that there's potential to review that in the future, but I have not read it as of yet. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, so we have a running list of our upcoming episode topic ideas, and I don't know if you guys have been noticing here as we've been recording the show, but I've been dropping topics from these questions we're doing into our little chat of things we should be covering, and replacing some of the other, or throwing into that list of for our upcoming episodes. We should absolutely read and review all of the Metroid manga and comics and whatnot, because I've read like bits and pieces, like panels on the internet here and there, and I have a general idea. I'm sure I've read like the Metroidpedia pages of them to like get like the book notes or like cliff notes or whatever. But I've never sat down and read them. And I've only read like the Metroid manga, that like the main one. I've never read anything from like Joey and Samus. I've seen images from them. I haven't really gone into any of that stuff. So I would love to do an episode on that. I would love to do one soon on that, of just like, let's sit down and go through all of them. Maybe do an episode on each one.
I agree. I think that could
be
do
a little series. Yeah, do a little series, but like bang that out real quick, and just kind of sit down and do that. I think that would be really cool. So, yeah, I have not dived into them, but we're writing it down for
have you read the manga?
I haven't read the manga. I have read the Metroid Prime 2 adaptation though, which is a very, very bizarre read. But that was like well over a decade ago, so I can't remember all the details on that. But it's a very, very loose retelling of Prime 2. But otherwise, I haven't really read any of those. But I think those would be really great topics for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, this is from Hiba Hussein. If Samus stayed a male as originally planned, how do you feel the Metroid series would have turned out? Would it have been more successful? Would the story end up differently? What a great question.
Can you read that again? I didn't...
Okay, so his question is, if Samus had stayed a male as originally intended, he's talking about the game designer of the original Metroid. They kind of made Samus, their decision to make her a woman was basically on a whim. If Samus had stayed male as intended, how do you feel the Metroid series would have turned out? Would it have been more successful? Would the story end up differently? What a great thought experiment. I don't know. Like, I don't know that I think that the series would have turned out differently, because I don't know that like Samus being a woman isn't necessarily like a driving force of the story per se. It's just, she's an aspect. I say that, but like I guess there is those themes of motherhood that
exactly. Yes, yeah. I agree with what you're saying. Yes, like as a person, but like there's a lot of stuff story wise and thematically that are tied to her being like a mother, or like the baby Metroid imprinting on her.
Yeah, that is true.
All that, like that stuff is kind of salient to the story. So I don't know. I
think you probably could have done it if Samus was a guy, but it probably wouldn't have connected in the same way. Like, I think a lot of that is like really based off Alien 2, which cheap plug by the way, but we've done our Alien review series and covered that. Yeah, I don't know. The really interesting part of that question to me is would the series have done better? And because like, say I don't know. Like it's a super interesting question. Like I'm trying not to cast all people who play video games back then in like the early 90s as like chauvinistic, because they're not. Like, but I think that there's probably an element of truth to like maybe it was easier for the video game target demographic, which was probably younger boys, to get behind a series with. But I mean, that being said too, you didn't even know that Samus was a woman until after you'd played Metroid 1. But I guess Metroid 1 was the most successful of the series for a long time. So it's a very interesting question. But I will say I'm glad that they didn't, because I really think that helped give this series a unique and lasting appeal. Like, I think it could have been just like another sci-fi series had they not done that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to kind of think about like would it have been more successful or not, because you're right, a lot of the elements of like her identity are shown at the end of the game. But I think experience wise, it made for a surprise. It was just a guy. That wouldn't have been a shock to anybody. I mean, some people thought she was a robot entirely and didn't even think she was human. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the story would have ended up differently. Would have been more successful. I really don't know. I don't necessarily think so though. But Doom, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, but I'm also in agreement. I don't think it would have made a huge. I think the series moving forward, there'd be some different changes, and in that regard, maybe, in terms of like like we were talking about with the lore and the motherhood and whatnot. But like, I don't think it would be so drastic in the sense that like we would get like a massive sales difference. I feel like Metroid would be in the same spot today that it would be in this alternate history.
Very interesting to think about. Actually,
Mantroid.
Mantroid. Yeah.
Mantroid.
Where's that shirt at the Omega Metroid Etsy store? Heba has a couple of interesting questions actually in a row here. So his next question, or their next question rather, is what one bad moment, so not a whole game, what one bad moment could you make worse in Metroid? How can you make one really good moment even better?
Oh, this is a cool question.
Well, Dak, do you want to take the lead here?
No. I'm curious. I want you or Doom to go first. I'm curious what you go with.
I mean, like we're all thinking like one bad moment, right? And I'm sure we're all thinking of the same thing here. Like, what part of Other M are we gonna single out?
I was gonna do something a bit different, but
okay. How about this? One bad moment. You know what they could have done to make a bad moment like even worse? Was the ending of Federation Force when you're fighting ginormous pinball Samus. They could have had pinball bumpers kicking around the map, or maybe that would have been better. Actually, I don't know.
That would be better. Yeah, that would be better.
Be significantly better.
I don't know what they could have done to make that worse. Actually, now that I'm trying to think about it, maybe. Geez, I don't know. They could have. I'm sure they could have done something though, because
they could have easily made it a boss battle against, instead of just giant Samus rolling around in a ball, giant Samus not in morph ball mode, and she's like saying some really cringy, generic, evil bad guy lines, and she's possessed. Like that wouldn't be fun. You wouldn't have liked that. You would have rather she stay in the morph ball.
I'm gonna say something that's about to make Andy angry. I'm sorry, Samus, but she's voiced by Zelda's voice actress in Tears of the Kingdom.
Doesn't he like the voice actress?
Yeah, I think.
I was gonna say
that's why he's saying that I don't like it.
Yeah,
come on, man. Like you can't tell me that you think that the way Zelda sounds worse.
It does not sound good.
It's I think she sounds good.
Nothing against her. I'm sure she's a talented voice, but like.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing, is not the quality of the voice acting is fine. It's just, why does Zelda have a British accent?
Oh, why not?
She sounds. What do you mean why not? It sounds dumb. It's
not even the British accent. It's that it's so over dramatic and melodramatic.
It's like a parody British accent.
Link, you have to save me right now.
Okay, imagine what the British people think of your accents. Come on now.
Yeah, but
think
why
about
is
that.
she even have? I think it's funny that she has a British accent because she's royalty. Because nobody else has a British accent, but she's a princess, so she has to have one. Like a 5-year-old comes up with that.
That is true, but I will say I think with like Tears of the Kingdom, not to segue into Zelda talk here, but like I think like she's really solid in that game. Like she feels more comfortable and confident in that role.
Also, Ganondorf. Oh my god!
And you know what? I'm
not good.
I'm not
I'm
prepared to
sorry.
say
Not a fan.
I was a little bit underwhelmed, but I will say because you haven't played the game yet, right, Dak?
No, but I have seen a couple cutscenes on YouTube. Particularly one where he talks to the Hyrule King and other things.
As the game goes by. But I'm not gonna die on that hill for sure.
Okay, so
my guest appearance on the Zelda cast. How about that?
Yeah, we'll see if that's still on the books or not.
Okay, so one bad moment could we make worse? Doom, what is yours?
I mean, well, I already suggested Zelda, but before I was going to do that, my suggestion was going to be Federation Force, but that's the last Metroid game we ever get.
Yeah, that could have been pretty bad.
Oh, that would have sucked. Yeah, that would have been really bad.
You know what?
That's pretty bad.
How about this? I don't know if this would have been worse or not, but like maybe one bad. It's not a moment necessarily, but like so Other M is super successful, and Other M2 is released. Same kind of everything. But I have a cool idea for actually one moment to make better. One cool moment to make better, and I'll go back to the Federation Force well, and I would say this. That there's a really cool moment in that game where you see a really sweet cutscene with Silex stealing a Metroid egg. Now imagine if that wasn't in that stupid chibi art style and it was just like cool and sleek and sci-fi and awesome. Now we're talking. Now we're cooking. Like that could be cool.
You don't like the Funko Pop models?
I think y'all are twisting the prompt a little bit. I think we're not talking about ideas. We're talking about moments. Like Federation Force is not really a I mean, I guess that is a moment in the game, but like you're talking about changing the entire game.
Well, yes. Okay, so how about this? I
think you're twisting the prompt a little bit.
I did a little bit. I have to admit, I did a little bit. Oh man, I think. I don't know. It's hard on the spot. Maybe we should have prepared a little bit. But
I have mine. I have mine. I think for the. I mean, this is the obvious one, but the Other M fight, Samus is so unable to fight Ridley that Anthony has to step in and fight Ridley and stop Ridley for her and save her entirely. That's a bad Metroid moment that you could make. I think unequivocally worse.
Okay, I thought of something, and you guys are going to hate it, but I don't like this moment, so here we go. The moment where you realize Adam is the AI, or the AI, rather, is Adam and has his personality. You could have had, like, Samus even more stunned and but like, some cheesy line, like, I knew that was the real you, or, like, something ridiculous in there to make an already ridiculous scene even more ridiculous. And I don't know what that line would have been, but, like, I'm not a fan of that scene, and I think it's a little bit hokey. So I'm sure they could have upped the cheese in that moment, or maybe instead of just seeing Samus's eyes, it could have had like her whole face just being like, or something, right? Like
I thought we were trying to make this bad, not funny.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I will say I actually agree with you that I do think the scene. I like the story implications, and I like it in concept, but I do agree the execution in game, like it's very. It is very hokey, as you would say, and I definitely think that's something you could actually improve.
Okay, here's one, by the way. In Other M, the scene where Adam is going to Sector 0 to destroy it or whatever, and Samus can't follow him, they kiss before Adam goes. Tell me that wouldn't have been awful.
That's it.
Okay.
That is the most vile thing I have heard on this podcast.
Well, they're not related, right?
Oh, man.
They're not related. Like, oh, that's fine.
No, they're not, but
Okay.
he's like her pseudo father. That is just.
I know, that would be bad, though. That would be bad.
Yeah, there's no beating that. That's the best one. There's there any good
ones?
ones?
Wait, how?
Like and subscribe. Dislike this video for that alone, please.
Man.
Why? Okay, it would have been bad. Yeah, it would have been bad. It would have been bad. But it would have been. Yeah, that's a bad one.
Jesus.
Okay, so how do we make one really good moment even better? That was the second half of the question. How do I make one really good moment even better? Who's got one?
Let's see. Um, you know, oh, okay. This is probably dumb, but like, when Samus regains her power suit in Metroid Zero Mission, I think it would have been a little bit cooler if like there was like one of those like an actual cutscene where like it just like goes back on her, almost like Iron Man style. It goes back on her, and there's some better music playing, and that could have been cool. That's something off the top of my head.
Okay. Doing, what about you? Cool moment, make it even cooler or gooder.
I mean, I've already suggested this before, but after you defeat the final Emmy in Dread, you step outside and it's playing the surface criteria music from Super Metroid. That would have been exponentially better.
Yeah. I guess for me to think about would be the ending of Dread, like when Samus gets. I mean, I guess it's not a good moment because I don't think it's a good moment, but like the ending of the game, I don't think is that bad. But if they had an actual resolution of maybe Samus having a little thoughts or something happen at the end, that would be cool. Um, yeah, that's a one off the top of my head, but that's another good one we probably have to think about more.
Metroid Other M, but instead of Adam, it's Chad Dane, and he's not restricting your weapon access.
Oh,
Boom.
boy.
Yeah, but that was a bad moment you made good.
Yeah, that's completely different. That's a tough
Which
question. Good question though. Okay,
That's a question that we could do. Bad moments we make.
Oh yeah,
much better, right?
Absolutely. Okay, Hiba's last question. You're the PR head and are starting the promotion for Metroid Prime 4. What actions do you take to ensure the promotional material is top tier?
Wow.
I think I don't think it's that hard, to be honest. Like, make a really cool cinematic trailer. Like, make a cool trailer and make sure that it plays in the right places. Have it all over YouTube. You know what I would do? I would bring it back to movie theaters, because I think that, and like, I know movie theaters aren't what they were, pre-COVID, but like, I think that I always remember seeing the Metroid Prime and the Gears of War trailer and the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles of all games. But like, every time I see a video game trailer in a movie theater, I kind of feel like that's a big deal. Like, this is a big game that's going on. I would put some bucks. I'd throw it in the Super Bowl. Like, just, if you're gonna do it, like, do it. And I know that's probably silly. They're not gonna spend that kind of money, but like,
They should.
that's what I might try.
Yeah.
If you want a different result, do something differently, right? Like, if you want a game that's going to get you 3 to 5 million copies, do it the same way that you market all your other games. And if you want a game that could potentially break the mold and level up the series, and especially if it's going to launch with the Switch 2, I mean, like, I'm pushing, and particularly if it launches with the Switch 2, like, that's my game that I'm showing to everybody, right? Like, this is the game where I'm like, not only look at this game, Metroid Prime 4, but like, look at what the Switch 2 can do. Look at the hardware. Look at this gorgeous game. Like, that's what I'm doing. I don't think it's that hard, to be honest. And I'm no marketing guy, but like, you just got to make a good trailer that it's exciting and have it play in the right places. Like, I feel like that's not too terrible. I'd keep it simple. Doom, what about you?
So my answer is going to be a bit vague, but bear with me here. So like, I feel like Metroid's biggest problem, it's the green eggs and ham problem. It's a quality series that people don't give a chance, that don't try. But when people do give it a try, for the most part, there's exceptions, but generally when people play like a good Metroid game, they become a fan. It's that bridge. That's the difficult part, is getting people to actually try it in the first place. And so I think when you're marketing the game, you have to identify, like, what are those barriers that are preventing people from getting in, and how do we use marketing to address that? And I feel like that's the key with the marketing campaign for Metroid Prime 4, or any Metroid title going forward, frankly.
I mean, I'd have a demo for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely have a demo. I think, Doom, you kind of hit the point there, is that it's something that's good when people try it, but they don't necessarily know about it. So like, the key thing would be awareness. Like this game, like, there should be advertising for it for months, like, everywhere, like on all the major social media. Like, you have YouTube, you have TV commercials. Like, try to like let people at least know about the game, because it'll sell itself once people try it. You don't need to put as much effort into trying to convince people it's good. It'll be good evidently when they give it a go, but they need to know about it first. So like, you want to be hitting those awareness stuff. I feel like doing like, having have a bunch of influencers play on Twitch, right? Like, that would be
Yeah.
I would do that. It's like on launch, have them get like a Metroid Prime like swag kit full of Metroid like stuff and like memorabilia and whatever, and a copy of the game, and they play it on launch day on Twitch, and a bunch of people watch it.
Yeah.
Have them do YouTube videos and all that. And then maybe do like a commercial with like a famous influencer, like that kind of stuff, where like people are more aware of it and they're sold on it because they'll know it's good when they play it, and because of the people that are involved in it influencer wise. Like that would be my strat. You want to go for the full awareness.
Dude, pay Amaranth whatever she wants to play Metroid Prime. But seriously, and you know what? This isn't marketing necessarily, but one thing that I would do as well is like let's say 9 to 12 months after, like discount the game, make it. And I know Nintendo never does this. They rarely put their games on sale, and we kind of talked about it a little bit when we were talking about PlayStation and Xbox, where like you've been conditioned to to wait, or I've been conditioned to wait, because I feel like in a year a brand new PlayStation game is going to be at least half off. But I don't think that that's the worst strategy, because like you're kind of, Nintendo's always been like, I'd rather more money for less copies rather than less money for more copies, and I think that that's clearly worked for them. It does kind of stunt the growth to an extent of a series like Metroid, where ideally getting into more players' hands would be better to attract new players to that game. So like that would be something I think that they should at least have a conversation about with like the games that need it. You know what I mean? Like I think you could keep Zelda, you could keep Mario, you could keep Pokemon. You could keep those games at full price for basically their entire lifetime, and you're gonna do fine. But like, would it really hurt to like after a year knock Metroid Prime's retail price down by half, knock Pikmin down by half, knock I don't know, that Astral Chain or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
I definitely agree, from a purely personal experience, that absolutely does work. I mean, Doom, it's my second favorite series, but I started out with Doom 2016 and I didn't pay full price for that. I waited until it was like $30-40 and then I grabbed it. And then when I loved the game so much that I started buying more of the games, and by the time Doom Eternal came out, I pre-ordered like the super, $150-200 collector's edition. And so like I feel like discounting titles to get people in, that's an investment you make, for more people to buy the game at full price when it does launch.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, from a consumer perspective, selling it for half price a year later would be great. I understand why Nintendo doesn't do it though. There's like kind of a level of like quality and prestige. Like, like they want like this is a full price game. This is what you pay for it. This is the premium you pay to play our game. So like I get that. And if Nintendo considers a Metroid Prime 4 game where they don't want to discount it for that reason, like I'm okay with that. And I think they should, marketing wise, kind of lean into the prestige, I think, of Metroid, which is Metroid Prime, which is why I hope they keep it Metroid Prime 4, because like the brand Metroid Prime already kind of says quality. The 4 says, hey, there's been a bunch of these. Like they're not bad. Like they're not going to keep making bad games if they're not doing well. Like there's already been a few before this. And I think that like making it seem like a big deal, release it alongside the new console, like put it alongside your marketing when you push Metro or Mario and Pokemon and Animal Crossing, put Metroid right up next to it and make it seem like a big deal. Like, oh, you don't want to miss out on this. It's as good as that other stuff. So like, there's a lot you can do with it. Of course, in terms of like your budget, that totally makes a difference. I think in general, like because they don't want to spend too much, I'm sure, budgeting on a Metroid game, which isn't going to sell as much as a Mario or Pokemon or Animal Crossing, whatever it is, or Splatoon, is awareness. Like get it out in front of as many eyes as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, like just a lot of people just don't know about Metroid. And I think if they did, they'll come to that decision like, oh, this is pretty cool, I'll check it out. A lot of people just don't really even know about it. Even Metroid Prime Remastered, like there are tons of people who don't even know that it ever came out. Whereas I guarantee you, if they just push that awareness and made people more aware of it, people would check it out and give it a try.
Another anecdotal experience kind of going off of that, just in terms of like, I feel like, in the gaming community, especially in the Nintendo community, we kind of take for granted, how many people in the Nintendo community are, even if they haven't played Metroid, they're at least aware of it to an extent. But I can tell you, like, when it comes to my real life friends, even my gaming friends that don't necessarily participate in those communities, Metroid there's a lot of stuff that like we take for granted that people don't even know about. My friend my friend Cole, who kind of helped me build my PC recently, we were actually talking about Metroid, and he didn't even know that there were 3D titles. He thought it was strictly a 2D series, which is like,
Hmm.
how do you not know that? But I mean, that's true. And he's someone that's like, he's a fairly hardcore gamer himself, and
Yeah.
let alone a casual audience. So I feel like getting that information out is another thing that Nintendo really needs to hit the nail on the head on.
Lots of different avenues that they can explore. Lots of different strategies that they should try. I don't know really what the right answer is, but I do remember like when they marketed Metroid Prime back in the day. And times have changed, but like they marketed that as a big deal. They invested big money into that commercial that they made, and it seemed like a big deal, and they pushed it like a big deal on the GameCube. So like, I feel like it can't be that hard. Like, get it to the right people, spend the money doing it, and just make a quality, exciting trailer or something to get people talking. And I think that you will find that the game, like you said, it's probably going to sell itself once people actually play it and once they actually get it in their hands. So yeah, that's another good question. Okay, let's move on. This is from New Supreme Man. If Nintendo came to you and asked you to create a power suit for Samus, what are some of the aspects of said suit that you would create? Colors, specific shapes and designs, unique functions or reasoning for the suit, etc., etc.
Design
I have
your
an
own
answer.
power suit. I don't know. This is
Well, well,
we
I
could
was-
spend so much time doing this.
We could. This is another way. You could probably do like a whole show. So but how about
Yeah.
this? I'm going to give a quick answer.
Okay.
Answer. I want a suit that interacts with like the ship or the surroundings around you. And I guess it would have to be a specific setting, but like I've always thought it would be really cool if like you had a suit, like let's just say that you were on some spaceship somewhere and you had a suit that like directly interacted with the ship around you. And kind of like in Breath of the Wild, how you can rotate the ship or like rotate the Divine Beast. I think that would be kind of cool. Maybe you could turn on, turn off gravity. I think a suit that lets you be at one with your environment would be awesome. Don't know how you'd make that in the context of like a game, but and I don't know what color it could be. It doesn't matter to me, but I think that would be really cool.
So I kind of interpreted this question as more so the art direction of the suit, not necessarily like, what like the feature, like in terms of the powers, what the features or the abilities would be. In terms of the art direction, I'm a big fan of the Echoes Hunter's Corruption style Various suit. I feel like it's a perfect blend of like the bulkiness of like the classic Super Metroid suit and the Prime suit, but it with some of the more slimmer features as well that makes it look a bit more modernized. You have a little bit more LEDs, but it's not like some of the more modern suits where they're just like all over the place where it looks like a gaming PC. I'm not quite a fan of that style of suit. But I feel like the Prime 2 suit like strikes a really nice balance between the two. And so I feel like I would use that suit as a base and just kind of just add more details, more creases, more lines, to show like the divots, the creases, and kind of the dimensions of like each layer of the suit. And that's kind of the direction I would go in. And assuming that I could actually draw, I cannot. So someone else who's more talented than me would have to do that. In terms of powers, though, Dak and I talked about this last year on one of the podcast episodes, but I had an idea of like adding zero gravity exploration and combat to Metroid, and I feel like you could add that function to like the gravity suit almost in a sense, and I would really love. And I feel like there's such a cool opportunity there, especially for like some of the more space station settings in Metroid. Imagine something like the GFS Valhalla, where you're walking through it normally, but then there's other sections to where you can't reach it, so you go into zero gravity and it changes the whole dimension of the game that way. I think that would be really cool.
I would love zero gravity, and I think that would be really cool with the gravity suit for sure. To keep it quick for me, I would love to see kind of like I always love like the thicker, bulkier power suit designs. I would love like a Hulkbuster like kind of variation of the power suit. Like she's just like a massive tank and can tank a lot of hits, has higher defenses, doesn't get staggered as hard, like can armor through stuff. Maybe with either with the trade-off of some mobility or keep her mobility, which I think would be really fun, just being this huge juggernaut size like character but still moving with the same agility that Samus normally has would be kind of interesting. But yeah, I would love to see kind of just a tankier version for me.
Okay, this next one is from Luke B. If you could choose one enemy to return in Metroid Prime 4, would it be the SAX or Emmy? Is neither an option? Not no. Like, I think that those two enemies specifically are so tied to their respective games that I think it's hard to imagine a scenario where any one of them comes back. And granted, they can make a scenario, I'm sure, but I don't know that I would be clamoring necessarily for a return of either. To be honest, I guess if I had to pick, maybe an Emmy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really want either returned, and that's not to discourage those enemies. I think the enemies are great in Dread.
Mhm.
The SIX is obviously like a huge highlight of Fusion, arguably the highlight of Fusion for a lot of people. But I feel like putting him into another game would almost like it's such a
I think it dilutes them.
yeah, it dilutes them. There's also a huge standard that they have to live up to in that game, and it doesn't really make sense, especially for the SAX in that context. It's a very specific context where the SAX is introduced, and so I would rather just them create. I don't mind them necessarily having another like big, kind of insta kill mascot villain that like they market the game off of. Maybe that's Silex, maybe that's someone else. But like,
I
would
hope it
rather
is Silex. That's
Yeah.
the thing, is that like what the thing about Silex thing is interesting to me is Silex is like a specific individual character with like a background and like a personality and like thoughts and whatnot. Whereas like the SX was just like a specific like beast kind of character. And Emmy is kind of like a similar monster. Like it's a robot, but it's also a monster character, right? It's like
yeah.
you have like in Halo, you have the Flood, but like you need the Grave Mind, right? Like you kind of need that like individual character, and like the X don't really have that, and the Emmys don't really have that. So I hope Silex is kind of that monster character that also has like Ridley, like, well, not like Ridley, but like has like a back and forth that you can have with them, and isn't just like a more a bigger enemy. But yeah,
you got the Covenant, but you also got the Arbiter and the Prophets.
Exactly. Yeah, you need those individual characters, and I think for Metroid Prime 4, you're right. Also, both of these characters like show up in very specific circumstances that like to make them show up in Prime 4, like you would have to really do some gymnastics to like make it make sense story wise. I think the Emmy would just be like the Emmy. It wouldn't. I think the Emmy could only maybe make sense if like maybe we saw like a prototype Emmy, like the company that I don't know what company it is that's building them. Like they don't build the Emmys until later in the Metroid story. Like if Metroid Prime 4 takes place when, and I guess like I'm assuming we're talking about Metroid Prime 4 taking place before Metroid 2. Obviously, if Metroid Prime 4 takes place after Dread, we could absolutely see an Emmy or an SAX or whatever. So I guess in those cases, like if we're talking about between Prime 3 and Federation Force and Metroid 2, I don't think we see either of them. And the Emmy, like I don't know, just the SAX, I guess, maybe, but that wouldn't make sense either. The X don't really start to get going until Samus exterminates all the Metroids in Metroid 2. If Metroid Prime 4 takes place after Dread, then either one could happen. I would rather see the SAX, personally. I think the SAX is a more interesting enemy. The Emmys are probably the more cooler gameplay function, like because they're more fleshed out. But like, I would be more hyped to see the SAX return, I guess. The Emmys are cool, but like, I don't have as much of an attachment to them. And, like, if you change the SAX to work like an Emmy, like then I would be covered. So I guess in that case, I would say the SAX.
I guess to cap this off, my one thought about I would prefer to see the SAX, but I want to see the SAX in like a Metroid Fusion remake. I think if you brought that into the Prime world,
well, yeah.
You're inherently kind of pitting it against like Dark Samus in a way, because it's like you have these very and dark versions of the Samus character. So it's like I don't really think either of them fit. Unfortunately,
that's a good point, but at the same time, it's like I feel like the SAX and Dark Samus are like still different enough. Like Dark Samus is cool and dark, but like the SAX is like a scary like horror character. And also, I'd love to see like the final form of the SAX in a Prime game. I feel like that would be really cool. Like bring that back again. It wouldn't make any sense, but
I think they're definitely different. But I just think on like a very visual surface level comparison, like it's hard not to make that comparison between the two of them. So
well, yeah.
I guess I think my answer would be neither. But let's move on. This question is for you, Dak. I don't know what the hell our pal Minneapolis King is talking about here, so let's go. Ryan asks, this question is more aimed at Dak, but interested in others' opinions. Given that John Mayer has already done guitar work for Halo, what do you think John Mayer and, more importantly, Dead & Company could contribute to a Metroid soundtrack?
This is such a specific question.
Who is Dead & Company? Is John Mayer, is he not the guy that sings, like, Waiting on the World?
Yeah, so I guess to, like, really quickly, like, sum this up, because to give any context just to make sense, the Grateful Dead is a band. I'm sure you know the Grateful Dead.
Yes.
If you don't, they're a rock band from 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. There was a band called Dead & Company, which is like a cover band of the Grateful Dead, featuring some of the original band members and other people, eventually including or starting with John Mayer, who
Really?
like got interested in the music, and he like started working with Bob Weir, who's like one of the original Grateful Dead members, and like they started touring and doing Grateful Dead stuff. So
okay.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big Deadhead, so that's why. And I know Minneapolis is as well. Yeah, so John Mayer is actually uncredited in the epilogue track of Halo 2. So if you hear the guitar, the little guitar solo in that's John Mayer, but he's uncredited. And yeah, it would actually be really sick if like somehow a little bit of John Mayer licks ended up in a Metroid track. I don't know how Metroid could possibly work with Grateful Dead. Like, they do have like a drums and space track, which is very like spacey and like ambient like drum percussion tracks, but aside from that, it's very like jammy, like Americana, like southern like blues rock. I don't know how that would work with Metroid at all. Would it be really sick? Yeah, it would be awesome. John Mayer is a great, an excellent guitarist and is great with Dead & Company. If he could like do a little guitar licks at some point on a track there, that'd be sick. Yeah, I think that would be awesome, but that would be such a weird mix, like jam band in Metroid. Like I have no idea how that could possibly work. To be really honest with you,
I was sure that there is another John Mayer that was like a member of this band, because like the John Mayer I'm thinking of had these like kind of light rock poppy ballads.
Yeah, like Gravity and like Waiting on the World to Change. That John Mayer, yes, it's the same one.
I didn't know he rolled like that, doing guitar solos for Halo. That's pretty cool, actually.
Well, he did like a little studio session. Yeah, if you go back and listen to that, that's him.
Okay, cool.
So I don't know about you, but when I think of Halo and guitars, there's two names that come into my head. None of them are John Mayer. The first
That's
one is
very true.
Steve
Vai.
Steve Vai, which I could totally see Steve Vai do it. I feel like his playing style definitely matches more the tone of Metroid. And then, of course, the second one is Breaking Benjamin. Blow me away!
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. But to be fair, Mayer is on the epilogue track, which is almost like the credits. Like he's not in a main one. So maybe that'd be cool if you did like the credits or something, or maybe like the title theme or something like that. But yes, Steve Vai on a Metroid track, that'd be sick. I would love like a Halo 2 like Reclaimer style solo in Metroid. That would be sick. Absolutely, I'm down for that.
We need like a Metroid new metal soundtrack. Now, that would be awesome. That would be cool.
I hope Metroid. Yeah, I hope Metroid Prime 4 really goes hard. I hope they really kind of like. I mean, I love like. Look, I was really disappointed by Dread's soundtrack, but like I would love if we get some more like live instruments and them really go like kind of harder with it and not just kind of do the average Metroid stuff, but still kind of keep it to like the traditional Metroid Prime like ambient
synthy,
and then also kind of groovy synthy stuff, but give me a little bit of orchestral or some guitar or something like that. Like mix it in. Like the Switch games love their saxophones and horn sections. All of them. They all add one for whatever reason. Metroid needs that too. Give me that as well. I'm down.
I feel like the soundtrack should be like a buffet. Like there's something for everybody, and it doesn't have to just be like one kind of thing. That's my hope, anyways. Okay, couple more here, and then we'll get on with it. This is from our pal Spam-A-Man. He asks, do you think Other M's bad reputation is 100% founded, despite the craptastic story and characterization? I thought the core loop was fun and would gladly revisit it for the sake of enjoyable gameplay. Who wants to take this first? I'll go if nobody does.
I just want to say, like, I think there's 2 points here I want to make. Number one, like, I think we're getting to a point where Other M has been out for so long that, like, the opinion has shifted. That Other M went from, like, a game that was super, super hated by, like, I would say majority of fans. That's probably still the case, but, like, I think it's been so long, the hate has obviously died down. There's been some better Metroid games have come out, so there's not as much reason to hate Other M as there was at the time. But also now a lot of Metroid fans like grew up on. I know a lot of people who like their first Metroid game was Other M, you know, and they have fond memories of it, or that's one of the only Metroid games they've played because they're younger and they haven't played some of the older Metroid games, so they don't know any better. So there's that, and then I think there's also now the dichotomy of people who, I think at this point everyone kind of accepts that the Other M story is bad, and like everything that in that realm, character, story, plot, whatever, was not great. But now it's like whether or not you think the gameplay was bad, which I think is not as set in stone consensus. And I mean, personally, I think yes, like Other M is that bad story wise, gameplay or character wise, all that, and gameplay wise. I think it's a super unfun game. It also was just not. It doesn't make sense how it was designed. It's like a 3D game with a 2D controller. It had to have been made in such a way that like it doesn't fundamentally make sense, and it had to be like bent into shape for it to actually be playable. I think it has super like almost no redeeming qualities. So yes, I think it's absolutely 100% founded. I hope we never go back to it again.
Yeah, I would say, this is a case of like two opposing things can be true at the same time. Where on one hand, like, I think we all want to move on from Other M and just beating up on
it.
And like,
I'm over it.
I think we're all over it. Like, and I think like even going further, like even myself, I'm like, I would like to try and look at the positive, good qualities of this game, because I just think that that's like more natural and easier for us as like humans to do, is to look at like the positive of it.
And there are a few positives,
and there are some positives. There's like I've kind of said forever, like I think the premise is actually like not that bad, but on the other hand, the opposing truth that is also true is like it really is that bad, and it does earn its reputation. It does. I mean, the story, it's awful. We know that, but like I was one of the ones that said for a long time, like I think the story's bad, but the gameplay's bad, and then I replayed it for our podcast. And I think the gameplay is probably average at best, unfortunately. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff that you do in the game. There's a lot of, I mean, just playing the game, first of all, on a sideways Wiimote is weird.
Just playing it is not good. Like, the feeling of actually just sitting down and holding the controller and trying to play the game does not feel good.
There's the weird, like, slow motion third-person parts where you're just walking really slow. There's the awkward going into first person. I will say I think the game does pick up dramatically towards the end when you're kind of free to go everywhere and you have all of your abilities, but like we're talking like the end of the game, and then like it just like this is kind of a fusion of story and gameplay, but like it Other M I think this is the biggest sin of Other M actually, is it constantly sets you up for something cool and then rips it away. You think you're gonna fight Ridley again? You're not. You think you're going to fight the Deleter? You're not. You think you're going to fight the Queen Metroid? I guess you like. You think you're going to fight MB? You don't. Like it does all this stuff, and it's like, so yeah, I do think that it's founded, but I do think that. With that being said, we can look at the redeeming qualities, because there are some for sure.
I think the single biggest issue of Metroid Other M, in terms of like its philosophical approach to the game design, is typically Metroid games, the story and the lore is designed around the gameplay first, and Other M it's the complete opposite, where it's clear that the story and the lore takes precedent and the gameplay is designed around that. The problem is that main buffet of that story and lore not only is mostly everyone in agreement that it's not great, but those gameplay concessions are constantly contradicted at the same point, and so it feels completely meaningless that these gameplay concessions are given to us, where it's like, wait a minute, you're contradicting that anyways, so why even put that on us in the first place? Like the whole the whole authorization thing. Like obviously that's probably the big example right there, and so yeah, when you have something like that that's fundamentally flawed, I think the hate is definitely warranted. That being said, I am also ready to move on, and as much as I dislike Other M, I think that like you can enjoy it, and it's so bad it's good. I kind of treat it the same way as I do Star Wars prequels. Like they're not good movies. They're not. But like I love watching them.
Hey,
I love watching them.
You watch the ending of Episode 1 and tell me that's not the best scene in Star Wars, because I will tell you that it is.
Well, I mean, I agree. I think there's no problem with watching like a bad movie or a bad TV show, acknowledging that it's bad. I mean, if you acknowledge it or not, whatever, but like if it's bad or whatever, like that's totally fine. But like Like if you play Other M, you're like, this is a bad game. I enjoy it. Got
Sure,
it. Like,
yeah.
look, I have no problem. I think the cutscenes are hilarious. I enjoy them. But am I going to say it's a good game? No, it's a bad game.
Mhm.
I will watch a bad movie and I'll be like, wow, I really enjoyed that. That made me laugh. It was a good? No, but I enjoy it. Yes. I think we should, as a society, be more okay with accepting that we like guilty pleasures. Like it's okay to have a guilt. Maybe Other M is your guilty pleasure. That's fine. Don't try to sell me, poop and tell me that's not poop. Like I can see what it is. If you like that, that's fine. It's not for me.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd say guilty. Like you can like what you like. I don't feel guilty about liking anything I like, but I can.
I think you should feel guilty about liking Other M if you like that.
Well,
is what I'm getting at.
Maybe.
I'm kidding.
I can't say I like Other M though, so I mean maybe that's why I don't feel guilty. But no, but seriously, like I think I think that you could like it, and you can also realize that it has flaws, and I
right.
I think that's fine. So yeah. Okay, let's do 2 more and then let's get out of here. This one is from New Supreme Man. If you had to choose one studio, not in-house, so no Nintendo, Retro, Mercury, Steam, nothing, to make a new Metroid game, which one would you choose and what style game would you have them make? Doominal, what say you?
Ooh. Could I do a combination of studios by any chance?
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, this is never gonna happen because they work for 2 completely different companies. But like, I would love to see DICE and id Software team up to make some sort of Metroid spin-off game that really focuses on movement. Because I really love. I feel like both of those studios have masterful first-person movement, and having that implemented into a Metroid game, I think there's unlimited possibilities there.
Dak, what do you think?
I don't know. This one I wasn't too sure on, and now I'm like kind of scrolling around of like anyone. I would think I would be down for a FromSoft Metroid game. I think I would be down with well, listen, because you think I'm gonna say, oh, I want a Dark Souls Metroid game. No, I want an Armored Core style Metroid game. Give me like a cool third person, like I'm control. Like that's how if they remake Federation Force. That's how they remake it. They remake it into an Armored Core game. You take the mechs from Federation Force, now they play like Armored Core mechs, and you go out into missions onto different planets, and you fight different monsters and whatnot from the Metroid games, and you have to go into your garage and soup up your mech and buy new parts and all that kind of stuff. Boom. You could be a bounty hunter in a mech and go out to different planet. Like, yeah, I'd be down for a FromSoft
the Gore spin-off game.
Or Gore, yeah, you could have Gore involved. Yeah, absolutely. Samus gets her own big mech, like, or even have Samus control like that. That'd be cool. Yeah, why not? Why not?
It's funny. We almost have the same answer, almost, but I did not pick From Software. So, are you ready for this? Kojima Productions. Imagine.
I'm shocked.
Imagine.
Oh, no.
No, hold on. There's 2 parts to this answer.
Hold on.
Imagine Other M, but Kojima made it, and it's like absolutely the most bonkers, batshit game you've ever seen. Now that would be awesome. That would be so wicked. Like, just comprehending some of those like scenes and how like over the top would be a sight to behold. But like, I like think too, like a lot of people forget that they made Zone of Enders, which is a really cool mech game. To your point, Dak, I think that would be like pretty cool to have kind of like a not like a mech game, but like a game where you're actually like in space, like going through space. Oh, like not quite Star Fox, but not quite Zone of Enders, but maybe something in the middle, something there like where you can explore and do, and maybe like a little bit No Man's Sky. That could be kind of cool. But man, just like I don't know. Maybe it's just because we were talking about Other M and I looked over and I saw my copy of Death Stranding, but like, God, that would be awesome just to see like Other M in that style of game.
If it's more like Metal Gear Solid and not Death Stranding, then yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love Kojima, not as much as you do, Andy, but I'm a big Kojima fan myself. I don't think his style of writing would fit in the Metroid universe. That being said,
of course it wouldn't. That's why it'd be so awesome.
It would be Other M again, is the writing.
Yeah, be great.
It would be,
no,
in its own little bubble, like making Other M even wilder and crazier, just as like a fun thought experiment. Though that would be absolutely hilarious.
Here's one. Here's one actually. A Rockstar open world Metroid game. You play as a bounty hunter out in the stars, and you can hijack people's ships and take bounties and do heists. I'd be down for that.
Okay, hold on.
That sounds like
Let me
Starfield.
raise you this. I want to be a literal rock star. I want Harmonix to come back from the dead and make
Metroid Guitar Hero.
Metroid Guitar Hero, Metroid Rock Band. Because you imagine how awesome that would be, just like playing like and maybe they get like some DJ hero in there too. You're playing like the Metroid Metal version of like Ridley's theme or something like that, and you're going like that'd be sweet.
Dude, I missed Rock Band. Like
I
that was
do
like
too.
one of my favorite. Rock Band 2 was like my jam, quite literally, back in high school. Like it introduced me to so much music that I still listen to today. Just a fun game to play. Got me into playing drums. I still have my E-kit in the closet back there, but yeah.
Here's
I got
one
pretty
real
good at
quick,
those Rock Band
actually.
drums.
By the way, I think this is actually a cool. Like, I don't know if you ever play Bastion or any of the
I played all their
Supergiant games. Yeah, Supergiant. I think that style of like isometric, like top-down 3D adventure, that would be kind of cool for Metroid. I think that would be a fun kind of, and like I like their storytelling style, like kind of like cartoony, it's stylish. It'd be cool.
And speaking of other M again, like the thing that always sticks out to me about Supergiant games, like playing Hades, playing Bastion, is like they have like just quality voice acting in all of their titles. Like it is really, really good. Like Hades particularly, I think sounds like amazing, and it doesn't have any big name voice actors or anything like that, but it's just like really, it's really good. Like it's really high quality. So yeah. Okay, let's do one more question, and this is from our man Big Griffin, the accursed hunter. Griff gave us like 100 questions to ask. So Griff, we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but I wanted to get to one. We're going to save the rest of your questions for another episode.
I'm saving them.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll save
keeping
them.
a tally of the ones we didn't get to tonight for next time.
Because I wanted to do all the other ones first and then get to Griff's, but I do think that Griff has a great question here that we can end off on, and that is so this is from Griff. I know Samus isn't the first playable female video game protagonist. I believe that would be Miss Pac-Man. But would you consider Samus to be the legacy female video game protagonist? If not, who would that be and why? So I think
Absolutely.
the key word there is legacy. Because what is legacy? Like what time period are we talking?
Old. I would say legacy is anything before 2000.
I might have a different answer.
I would put her on the Mount Rushmore of female video game characters. That would be
no
my
question.
answer.
No question, but like I think that if you're talking like older, I think there's two characters that come to mind.
Well, if you're thinking, if you're talking about legacy, like I'm thinking like Miss Pac-Man might be one of those. Like I don't know how legacy we're going.
Pac-Man and Peach would be my two answers.
I think Lara Croft.
I'm talking about Lara Croft.
Lara Croft is that what would be my answer.
Lara Croft is probably the most famous female video game protagonist of all time, even more so than Samus, unfortunately. So if you're talking legacy as in before 2000, then it's Lara Croft. If you're talking like it's difficult because it's like if you're talking about impact, that's probably Samus. Because Miss Pac-Man was just like a reskin. It wasn't anything. But
hey, Miss Pac-Man made strides for the industry.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, that had cutscenes. There were cutscenes in that game. I think that was the first game to have cutscenes. Was Miss Pac-Man. So boom.
Like as we were talking earlier, though, like in Metroid 1, like Samus being a woman was more about like a surprise and a shock rather than an integral part of the game. Where I think you look at Tomb Raider and like, you know, Laura being Laura is an essential part of that game. She uses her sexuality in that series as well as she should. Why not? So while I think that Samus is undeniably on the Mount Rushmore of video game heroines, if you're talking legacy, like I guess like what does that even mean? Like, is she the legacy female video game? Like she's a legacy, like
I think you could say she's because she's probably the most well known. I think like she was the first mainstream woman female protagonist. Like Samus was well known, but I don't think she really became.
You're talking Laura, right?
Yeah, Laura. Did I say Samus?
I don't think he said it. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Lori. I think she was the first mainstream one,
Yeah.
like the most popular. Like everyone knows what Tomb Raider is. It's like one of the most popular IPs. Like it's not one of the most, but it's more popular than Metroid. It crossed over into movies. Angelina Jolie, like you have all that kind of stuff that like Tomb Raider really, I think, kind of made that shift first. And you're right, like Samus's like identity in terms of like her gender, like and just who she was as a person, like wasn't integral to Metroid for a while. And even if you didn't play Super Metroid, you wouldn't have known that. Like she could have been a robot, right? Whereas like Lara Croft is very obviously a person, man or woman, very obviously a human, and is going through surviving as a human in a a human kind of situation. So, and again had that kind of like more relativity and connection there, and was very outwardly a woman from the get-go, right? Whereas with Samus it was a surprise at the end. So yeah, I would probably say Lara Croft. But
I would too.
I mean, yeah, if you're doing like a Mount Rushmore, if you're doing a top 4, I mean, I would probably put Samus at second, really. If you're gonna make that, if we're gonna be splitting hairs, like it would probably be Lara Croft and then Samus, I guess.
Well, they're like, I guess if you're talking in terms of importance, I might argue Samus, but in terms of like maybe this overall recognizability, I think like Laura is the one that is probably number one.
It all depends on how you read the question, because like when I read the legacy character, I think of like what is like the first female gaming protagonist that most people look to. And when I think of that, I think of Samus personally. Obviously Lara Croft, and honestly I'd say even Chun-Li is probably in terms of popularity above her, but like in terms of like the first,
she wasn't really a protagonist though. She was like always she wasn't.
She's not, but I don't know that I would disagree with that assessment.
But yeah, that's fine. Like, yeah, I would agree. She's like a close protagonist, like there. I mean, I think Lara Croft has some importance though. Like, I think her being a mainstream woman lead character was a very big positive for the industry.
Absolutely, I'm not saying she's not important.
No, I know. I'm going back to kind of. And to your point there, like I would even see maybe Lara Croft's, like there's an argument I think that her legacy might be as important, if not more important than Samus's, I think. That's what I'm saying. I think it kind of goes either way. I think it go kind of either way. So.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, that's going to do it. That is all of our questions. Griff, we're going to get to the rest of yours another day. Thank you for supplying us with so many great questions. And thank you to everybody for making this show so easy and so fun and so thought-provoking for us to do. So thank you to everybody for that. We are going to get out of here, but of course, we want you to check us out over wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. That would be fantastic. Recommend us to any Metroid fans you got in your life that may not know about this show. You can check out OmegaMetroid.com for all of your Metroid needs. We got guides, maps, thought pieces, stuff like that. And of course, we're over on Patreon where the great Metroid area ranking continues to roll. So check us out over there. That is going to do it, friends. Until next week, everybody, take care and have a happy Independence Day. Ciao.